You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Knowledge capture is the practice of transforming the experience of teams into durable, searchable, and trustworthy artifacts that can be reused across products, projects, and time. The orientation is not just about writing things down, but about creating resources that preserve context, accelerate onboarding, and reduce the need to relearn painful lessons. When handled well, knowledge capture makes improvement scalable by converting one team's discovery into many teams' capability. It requires discipline because not all learning is easily documented, and not all artifacts are equally useful. Retrospectives, incident reviews, and design spikes generate valuable insights, but unless those insights are captured in structured, accessible ways, they vanish into memory or private notes. A knowledge system ensures that learning compounds over time, creating organizational assets rather than ephemeral recollections. Done consistently, this practice becomes a multiplier of effectiveness, enabling teams to build on one another's progress rather than repeating the same mistakes. The distinction between explicit and tacit knowledge is central to effective capture. Explicit knowledge can be documented directly, runbooks, standards, or checklists that prescribe steps with clarity. Tacit knowledge, by contrast, resides in people's experience, intuition, and patterns of judgment. It is harder to express, requiring narratives, demonstrations, or pairing to transfer effectively. For example, documenting how to restart a service is straightforward, but capturing the subtle cues that a senior engineer uses to decide when a rollback is preferable may require stories, shadowing, or annotated examples. Recognizing this distinction prevents frustration and sets realistic expectations. Some things belong in text, others in guided practice or recorded sessions. Blending explicit documentation with mechanisms for tacit transfer like communities of practice or pairing sessions ensures that knowledge systems are both practical and rich. This balance acknowledges that not all expertise fits neatly into checklists, yet all expertise deserves pathways to transmission. Source system mapping ensures that learning enters the pipeline consistently rather than relying on ad hoc contributions. Every organization has recurring moments where knowledge is generated. Retrospectives, incident reviews, design spikes, support cases, and experiments. By mapping these feeders, teams create intentional pathways so that new insights flow into the repository. For example, every incident review might generate updated runbooks, while every design spike produces architectural notes linked to decision records. Without mapping, valuable lessons remain siloed or are forgotten. By formalizing input sources, organizations normalize the act of capturing knowledge as a byproduct of routine events. This not only reduces overhead, but also ensures coverage, as no single moment of learning is privileged while others are ignored. Source mapping turns knowledge capture from sporadic effort into continuous accumulation, making the system robust and representative of the full range of team experience. Artifact types provide the form factors that make knowledge actionable and reusable. Different contexts require different packaging. Decision records capture rationale and trade-offs. Runbooks document repeatable tasks. Playbooks outline workflows for scenarios. Standards codify norms. FAQs address common questions. And how-tos explain targeted practices. Each artifact type serves a distinct purpose. For example, a decision record may prevent future teams from revisiting the same debate without context, while a runbook ensures consistent execution under pressure. By offering multiple artifact types, the knowledge system becomes versatile, serving both immediate operational needs and long-term strategic understanding. Artifact diversity also improves adoption. People are more likely to use knowledge that fits their task, whether troubleshooting an incident or planning a roadmap. By defining and curating artifact types, organizations avoid vague, unfocused documents and instead build a library of fit-for-purpose resources that genuinely improve performance. Templates and style guides enforce consistency and reduce cognitive load for both contributors and consumers. Without shared structure, repositories devolve into uneven, difficult-to-read collections where critical details are buried or omitted. Templates specify fields such as scope, context, preconditions, and acceptance criteria, ensuring clarity and completeness. Style guides emphasize brevity, plain language, and consistent tone, making artifacts accessible to a broad audience. For example, a runbook template may require environment prerequisites, step-by-step instructions, and rollback paths. These expectations reduce reader effort and raise signal quality, as artifacts are easier to scan and trust. Templates also accelerate contribution by providing scaffolding, lowering the barrier for busy practitioners to document their knowledge. Over time, this discipline transforms repositories into reliable systems of record, where users know what to expect and can navigate with confidence. Style discipline is not bureaucracy. It is the usability layer that turns captured knowledge into applied capability. Metadata and taxonomy design enable effective discovery by reflecting how practitioners search. Tags by domain, technology, risk area, and maturity level help users filter content to match their needs. For example, tagging a runbook with database high availability and recovery ensures it surfaces for someone searching any of those terms. Taxonomies provide consistent categories, reducing duplication and ambiguity. Metadata also supports analytics, showing which areas generate the most artifacts and where gaps exist. Without taxonomy, repositories become dumping grounds where knowledge is technically present but practically inaccessible. With thoughtful metadata, knowledge becomes navigable, aligning content structure with user intuition. Taxonomy also evolves as domains shift, requiring stewardship to remain relevant. By investing in tagging and categorization, organizations ensure that knowledge is not only captured but also retrievable in the moments that matter. Discovery is the bridge from artifact creation to actual reuse, making taxonomy design mission-critical. Findability practices extend taxonomy into the user experience. Full-text search, curated collections, and cross-linking connect related artifacts and make navigation intuitive. For example, a playbook might link directly to its supporting runbooks, while a decision record points to subsequent updates that refined the choice. Curated collections highlight the most trusted and relevant artifacts for newcomers or high-stakes situations. Full-text search complements metadata, allowing users to locate content even if they lack precise taxonomy terms. Cross-linking prevents duplication by showing relationships between artifacts, guiding readers to existing resources rather than creating redundant ones. Findability transforms repositories from static libraries into dynamic networks of knowledge. By prioritizing discoverability, organizations increase adoption and reduce wasted time. Effective findability practices ensure that captured knowledge not only exists, but also flows to the right people at the right moment, turning repositories into accelerators of delivery rather than cluttered archives. Quality standards distinguish hypotheses from established practice, ensuring that knowledge artifacts are trustworthy. Standards require verifiable facts, clear preconditions, and tested steps before an artifact is labeled as reliable. For example, a runbook should include validation steps to confirm its accuracy, while decision records should separate assumptions from evidence. Without standards, repositories risk accumulating unvetted or contradictory entries, eroding trust and discouraging use. Quality criteria also encourage contributors to refine their inputs, knowing that artifacts must meet defined thresholds. This improves both clarity and reliability, reducing risk during reuse. Peer review or steward approval may be part of the process, further reinforcing rigor. Quality standards signal to users that the library is not a random collection but a curated, dependable resource. By embedding these checks, organizations ensure that knowledge capture translates into actionable, high-quality guidance rather than noise. Versioning and ownership policies provide accountability and adaptability. Knowledge is never static. Systems evolve, standards change, and lessons deepen. Without version control, artifacts quickly go stale, creating confusion or risk. Docs as code approaches, with change logs and steward reviews, ensure that updates are transparent and traceable. Ownership policies assign named stewards to artifacts, responsible for maintaining currency and accuracy. For example, a security runbook may have a designated steward who updates it when regulations change or new vulnerabilities are discovered. This accountability ensures that repositories remain living systems rather than fossilized archives. Versioning also provides historical insight, showing how practices evolved and why. By embedding accountability and traceability, organizations sustain trust in their knowledge systems, ensuring that reuse is safe and effective. Stewardship transforms documentation from static deliverables into dynamic assets aligned with real-world change. Sensitivity, classification, and redaction safeguard confidentiality while maximizing reuse. Some artifacts contain personal data, secrets, or regulated information that cannot be shared broadly. Classification systems identify sensitivity levels public, internal, restricted, and apply controls accordingly. Redaction allows artifacts to be sanitized, preserving lessons without exposing sensitive details. For example, an incident review may describe root causes and fixes while anonymizing user data. This practice ensures compliance with privacy laws and security policies while still contributing knowledge to the organization. Sensitivity management prevents repositories from becoming risky liabilities while still honoring their purpose as learning tools. By building classification and redaction into capture workflows, organizations balance openness with responsibility. This design builds trust, signaling that knowledge capture respects both compliance and culture, enabling candid reflection without fear of misuse. Definition of done integration embeds knowledge capture into the rhythm of work. Significant events feature completions, incidents. Audits trigger explicit knowledge creation tasks. For example, closing an incident requires not only technical resolution, but also updating runbooks and decision records. By embedding capture into workflows, organizations ensure that learning accrues continuously rather than in sporadic bursts. This practice reduces the cognitive burden of remembering to document later and prevents valuable context from fading. It also normalizes knowledge capture as part of professional excellence, not an optional extra. By aligning capture with existing processes, organizations minimize friction while maximizing learning. Over time, definition of done integration ensures that repositories grow in tandem with delivery, embedding resilience and adaptability into daily practice. Onboarding pathways turn repositories into accelerators for new contributors. Instead of leaving newcomers to navigate sprawling libraries, curated primers and golden threads guide them through the most relevant and trusted artifacts. For example, a new engineer might follow an onboarding path that includes key standards, FAQs, and runbooks for common tasks. These pathways reduce time to independent contribution and build confidence. They also reinforce cultural values by highlighting artifacts that embody organizational priorities, such as security practices or collaboration norms. Onboarding pathways prevent overwhelm, making repositories approachable rather than intimidating. By curating journeys, organizations transform knowledge systems into engines of inclusion and growth, ensuring that captured experience quickly translates into competence for new members. Toolchain coherence ensures that knowledge capture is adjacent to work rather than a separate, easily neglected destination. Integrating wikis, repositories, ticketing systems, and communication platforms creates seamless pathways. For example, linking incident tickets directly to related runbooks, or embedding decision records in version control keeps knowledge in context. Coherence reduces duplication, ensures updates flow across tools, and increases adoption by meeting people where they already work. It also simplifies audits and reviews, as artifacts remain connected to their originating systems. Toolchain coherence prevents knowledge from fragmenting across isolated silos, ensuring that repositories reflect reality. By making capture part of the toolchain, organizations reduce resistance and improve efficiency, embedding learning naturally into daily workflows. Feedback channels transform repositories from static libraries into living systems. Every artifact should invite improvement suggestions, comments, and questions, turning readers into contributors. For example, a runbook might include a link for suggesting edits or raising issues when steps are unclear. Feedback loops accelerate refinement, surfacing ambiguities or gaps that stewards may miss. They also create community, signaling that knowledge is collective, not owned by a few experts. Over time, these channels increase trust as users see their input reflected in updates. Feedback practices keep repositories relevant, adaptive, and responsive to real-world needs. By embedding channels for input, organizations democratize knowledge, making it both more accurate and more widely owned. Anti-Pattern Watch protects repositories from decay. Common pitfalls include stale pages that mislead users, private hoards where knowledge is hidden in personal drives, and document bloat that overwhelms readers with irrelevant detail. Preventative practices include expiry dates that force review, shared spaces that discourage private silos, and concise, task-focused writing that prioritizes usability. By naming and addressing anti-patterns, organizations preserve trust and utility. Repositories remain lean, accessible, and relevant rather than cluttered archives. Anti-pattern vigilance ensures that knowledge capture serves its purpose, making learning usable rather than becoming another layer of overhead. Sustained discipline here is as important as initial capture, ensuring that repositories remain assets over time. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Community of practice charters give structure and clarity to peer learning groups. Without a charter, these communities risk devolving into casual chats without sustained impact. A good charter defines purpose, scope, and membership expectations. For example, a testing community may commit to sharing automation patterns, mentoring newcomers, and curating standards for consistent quality. Scope clarifies boundaries, preventing drift into unrelated domains. Membership rules ensure inclusion while setting expectations for contribution. By codifying intent, charters elevate communities from informal gatherings to recognized enablers of capability growth. They also provide legitimacy, helping leaders justify investment of time and resources. Over time, strong charters foster continuity, even as membership rotates. They create accountability for outputs such as curated patterns, trusted playbooks, or updated standards. In this way, charters turn passion into purpose, anchoring communities as durable engines of organizational learning. Cadence and agenda design make the difference between communities that generate value and those that fizzle. Well-run sessions combine show and tell, pattern reviews, and problem clinics. Show and tell segments allow members to present real work, surfacing lessons from current challenges. Pattern reviews refine and debate established practices, ensuring standards evolve. Problem clinics invite collaborative troubleshooting, turning isolated struggles into shared solutions. Agendas balance these elements to prevent monotony and ensure actionable outputs. Cadence matters too. Too frequent, and members feel overwhelmed. Too infrequent, and momentum fades. Monthly or bi-weekly rhythms often work well, sustained by predictable agendas. By designing cadence and agendas thoughtfully, communities avoid drifting into unfocused chatter. Instead, they become consistent contributors to repositories, producing reusable artifacts like playbooks and curated examples. This balance ensures that communities deliver tangible improvements to practice while maintaining energy and engagement over time. A knowledge backlog and curation roles are essential to maintain repository health. Backlogs prioritize gaps to fill, duplicates to consolidate, and obsolete entries to retire. Like product backlogs, they provide visibility into pending improvements and guide steward attention. For example, if retrospectives reveal recurring confusion about deployment, the backlog records a need for a new runbook. Curation roles assign responsibility for pruning clutter and consolidating overlapping entries. Without curation, repositories quickly accumulate noise, overwhelming users and eroding trust. Curators balance inclusivity with quality, ensuring that every artifact is useful, accurate, and timely. They also act as facilitators, turning scattered contributions into coherent collections. Knowledge backlogs and curation roles reinforce that maintenance is as important as creation. By embedding these responsibilities, organizations prevent decay and ensure that repositories remain lean, relevant, and usable, supporting reliable decision-making across teams. Governance and moderation norms protect communities and repositories from decline. As participation grows, disputes about standards, tone, or contributions are inevitable. Governance frameworks define how decisions are made, consensus, voting, or steward authority, and ensure transparency. Moderation norms establish expectations for respectful dialogue, inclusion, and constructive critique. For example, guidelines may prohibit dismissive comments and encourage evidence-based debate. Governance also clarifies escalation paths for disputes, preventing frustration from stalling progress. By embedding governance and moderation, communities create safe, structured spaces where diverse voices are heard. This stability encourages participation, as members trust that discussions will be fair and productive. Governance is not bureaucracy. It is scaffolding that allows peer learning to flourish without drifting into chaos or exclusion. Norms protect psychological safety, ensuring that communities reinforce capability growth while sustaining respectful, inclusive cultures of learning. Review and refresh cycles keep high-traffic artifacts current and trustworthy. Without scheduled updates, repositories fill with outdated information, eroding credibility. Assigning best-before dates ensures that artifacts are revisited regularly. For example, a playbook may expire after 1 year unless reviewed and revalidated. Stewards are accountable for these refreshes, updating content or retiring entries as needed. Automated reminders or dashboards can track upcoming expirations, making review visible. Refresh cycles also provide opportunities to incorporate new learning, aligning artifacts with evolving practices. By keeping artifacts fresh, organizations prevent users from wasting time on obsolete guidance. Refresh discipline also reinforces accountability, demonstrating that knowledge is actively maintained rather than abandoned. Over time, this practice builds trust, as users know that repositories reflect current reality. Review cycles transform knowledge systems from static archives into living libraries that adapt alongside organizational growth and change. The Lessons to Playbooks pipeline ensures that insights from retrospectives and incident reviews change behavior, not just understanding. Too often, lessons learned are recorded in reports but never acted upon. A structured pipeline translates these lessons into actionable playbooks, checklists, or runbooks. For example, if an incident reveals missed monitoring, the pipeline might generate a new alerting checklist added to deployment steps. This translation makes insights operational, embedding them into daily work. The pipeline also prioritizes which lessons warrant playbook creation, focusing on high-impact or recurrent patterns. By institutionalizing this process, organizations ensure that learning is not just archived, but actively shapes practice. Over time, the pipeline closes the loop between reflection and prevention, turning problems into catalysts for better systems. Lessons become more than words. They become guardrails and guides that improve performance, reliability, and resilience across teams and products. Practice integration embeds knowledge into workflows so that captured insights influence real decisions. Artifacts are linked to definition of done, quality gates, or golden paths, ensuring that guidance is used, not ignored. For example, a new security standard may be embedded into automated build pipelines, or a deployment runbook may become part of release checklists. Integration ensures that knowledge shapes behavior by default, reducing reliance on memory or voluntary compliance. This approach transforms repositories from reference libraries into active partners in delivery. It also builds resilience, as practices evolve alongside systems rather than lagging behind. Over time, integration prevents the gap between what we know and what we do, aligning daily work with captured learning. By weaving artifacts into normal processes, organizations make improvement continuous, scalable, and automatic. Practice integration ensures that knowledge is not just stored but lived. Measurement validates whether knowledge capture efforts are paying for themselves. Metrics include views, adoption rates, search-to-click ratios, and estimated time saved by using artifacts. For example, if a runbook is accessed frequently during incidents and reduces recovery time, its value is clear. Adoption can be measured by tracking how often standards are referenced in code reviews or compliance checks. Metrics also highlight gaps, such as frequently searched terms with no matching artifacts. By tracking reuse and impact, organizations shift focus from volume of documentation to value delivered. This evidence justifies investment and guides improvement, ensuring repositories evolve where they matter most. Over time, measurement builds a feedback loop, showing contributors the impact of their work and motivating ongoing participation. Knowledge capture becomes not just a cultural expectation, but a demonstrably effective practice. Incentives and recognition counterbalance the natural bias toward rewarding new creation over maintenance. Without deliberate reinforcement, contributors may focus on adding artifacts while neglecting updates or curation. Recognition systems highlight and credit quality contributions, thoughtful reviews, and maintenance efforts. For example, updating a critical runbook may be celebrated as much as creating a new standard. Incentives can be formal, such as career progression criteria, or informal, such as public appreciation in community forums. The key is making invisible work visible, ensuring that contributors feel valued for sustaining repositories. By embedding recognition, organizations create balance between novelty and stewardship. This practice also strengthens culture, signaling that maintaining accuracy and clarity is as important as innovation. Over time, recognition ensures that repositories remain reliable, because contributors know that their efforts to refine and sustain knowledge are noticed and appreciated. Accessibility and localization practices ensure that knowledge serves diverse audiences. Plain language makes artifacts understandable to non-experts. Readable formats, such as mobile-friendly layouts, ensure usability across contexts. Captions on videos, transcripts for demos, and translations for multilingual teams expand inclusivity. For example, an incident review recording with captions and translated highlights becomes a global learning resource. Accessibility also supports neurodiverse contributors, reducing barriers to participation. Localization ensures that guidance is culturally relevant, avoiding assumptions tied to one context. By embedding these practices, organizations broaden reach and equity. Artifacts become assets for the entire workforce, not just a subset. Over time, inclusive design improves adoption, as people trust that repositories respect their needs. Accessibility and localization transform knowledge systems into enablers of collaboration across diverse roles, geographies, and identities. Cross-boundary sharing extends the reach of knowledge to partners, vendors, or regulated audiences. Interfaces across organizations often suffer from repeated missteps because lessons are not shared. By sanitizing sensitive content and sharing curated artifacts, organizations reduce duplication of effort and increase trust. For example, providing vendors with playbooks for integration or partners with retrospective summaries accelerates alignment. Clear intellectual property and confidentiality terms protect boundaries while still enabling collaboration. Cross-boundary sharing also reinforces ecosystem resilience, as knowledge flows beyond silos. This approach transforms learning from an internal advantage into a collective strength, raising quality and reliability across interfaces. By deliberately extending sanitized knowledge, organizations prevent partners from repeating mistakes already solved. improving speed, and reducing risk for everyone involved. Compliance alignment ensures that repositories satisfy audit and regulatory needs without creating bolt-on paperwork. Approval trails, retention windows, and stewardship checks are embedded into the repository itself. For example, a decision record may include evidence of review and expiration dates, meeting compliance requirements automatically. By integrating compliance into normal workflows, organizations reduce duplication and improve trust. Regulators see the processes are consistent and auditable, while teams avoid the burden of retroactive reconstruction. Compliance alignment demonstrates that agility and accountability can coexist, reinforcing credibility. Over time, it also reduces audit stress, as repositories double as evidence systems. This integration turns compliance from a constraint into a feature, ensuring that knowledge capture supports both operational performance and regulatory assurance seamlessly. Remote and async patterns make knowledge creation and consumption independent of co-location. Recorded demos, annotated examples, and thread-based Q and AMP-A allow distributed teams to contribute and learn at their own pace. For example, a demo recording may be paired with annotations highlighting critical steps, making it a reusable artifact. Async Q and AMP-A threads become mini FAQs that grow organically. These patterns reduce time zone friction and ensure that knowledge work continues even when teams cannot meet live. They also build inclusivity, as voices that might hesitate in real-time meetings can contribute thoughtfully in async forums. By embedding remote-friendly practices, organizations sustain knowledge flow across distributed teams, ensuring consistency and resilience. Remote and async patterns also future-proof repositories, keeping them effective regardless of workplace configuration. A sustainment plan ensures that knowledge systems remain healthy as teams, technologies, and priorities evolve. Stewards rotate to spread responsibility. Periodic audits check for quality and relevance, and archival policies retire outdated content gracefully. For example, a quarterly audit may identify artifacts past their best before date, prompting updates or removals. Rotation of stewardship prevents burnout and broadens ownership, reinforcing that knowledge is a collective responsibility. Archival ensures that obsolete entries do not confuse users while preserving historical records for context. Sustainment planning turns repositories into living systems rather than decaying archives. By embedding maintenance as an explicit responsibility, organizations ensure long-term trust in their knowledge libraries. This resilience allows knowledge to compound across years, transforming experience into durable capability at organizational scale. Knowledge capture synthesis emphasizes that learning becomes scalable when artifacts are structured, communities are active, and maintenance is disciplined. Explicit and tacit knowledge are captured through diverse forms, from decision records to recorded demos. Source system mapping, templates, and taxonomy ensure consistency and findability, while feedback loops and anti-pattern vigilance keep repositories relevant. Communities of practice curate, refresh, and extend knowledge, linking lessons directly to practice. Accessibility and cross-boundary sharing broaden impact, while compliance integration ensures credibility. Sustained stewardship turns repositories into living systems where learning compounds and trust persists. Ultimately, knowledge capture is not just documentation. It is the conversion of experience into reliable, reusable capability. Done well, it prevents repetition of mistakes, accelerates onboarding, and strengthens collective performance, ensuring that organizational knowledge is an enduring asset rather than a fleeting memory. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.